We've joined now by writer and commentator Momus Najmi to talk about, well, Islamophobia and also the Muslim Council. They've got elections for electing their new Secretary General. A very good morning to you, Momus.
Morning.
Thank you so much for... Oh, morning. Good afternoon, actually. What am I saying?
Oh,
good afternoon. Yes, very... I can understand your hesitation there. Now, just talk specifically about the Muslim Council, first of all, because as of tomorrow, we've got the first hustings between two candidates vying to lead the Muslim Council. This is Dr. Mohammed Idris and Dr. Mohammed Wajid Akhtar. They're going to be questioned about their views and things. Now, in a report by Policy Exchange, the think tank, they say they've discovered deeply disturbing remarks by both of the men, according to a former Muslim MP. Comments from 2022, Akhtar called being a Muslim an act of revolutionary defiance at odds with the prevailing culture, advocating that British Muslims identify primarily as Muslim rather than as British. We've also, Akhtar also said in 2012 Muslims shouldn't take part in New Year's celebrations because it involves un-Islamic practices such as mixed gender events where people dance and sing songs. It is necessarily, he says, an Islam-free zone. Idris wrote a glowing report of the Iranian regime in 2017 after a trip to Tehran, praising Khomeini, the former supreme leader of Iran, and the Iranian Revolution, despite country carrying out executions for blasphemy that year. Now, they've been criticised by the Labour MP for Perry-Barr Birmingham, that's Khalid Mahmood, certainly a friend of the show here. What do you make of the fact this body that claims to be the representation of the Muslim community, such as it is one community in Britain, being basically facing leadership from one of these two men?
Well, I would say, like, what would be the criteria of leading the Muslim Council? I would say, like, the best criteria would be for the people to be Muslim, to be practicing Muslim, and to believe in the core teachings of Islam. And by that standard, those two are actually fit for purpose, because that's what the Islamic beliefs are. So what the situation that we have over here is that the views that they hold are right from Islamic point of view, but they are wrong from the Western point of view. And that should tell us all we actually need to know about Islam and having a Muslim council within Britain.
But you were raised as a Muslim, but you left Islam 18 years ago because you decided you didn't agree with the teachings. Are you saying that the teachings of Islam are incompatible with Western values?
I think so. We are seeing it. I don't need to say it, right? So we are questioning right now these two people having these views that are unacceptable to the Western mind, right? So, but their views are okay according to Islamic teachings.
Yeah.
So I don't need to say it. The example is us having a discussion means that it is not compatible.
Well, would their views be considered mainstream to many of those involved in deciding who the next leader of the Muslim Council is? Because, I mean, I've never been that convinced by how much the Muslim Council of Britain actually represents all Muslim people in this country. I mean, I'm not sure that anyone could represent all atheists or all Catholics or all, you know, Scientologists even.
I would say, like, that's a fair point, but I think so the purpose of Muslim Council is not really to represent Muslims, but rather to represent Islam within Britain, right? So they do represent Islam. Muslims, there would be a lot of Muslims who don't even know, like most of the moderate Muslims, they don't really know their own religion. So we can't really hold them as someone, as an expert in their own religion, because they don't know it. Yeah. So there will be no moderate Muslims who would occupy these positions, let's say as an imam in a mosque, or the lead of a Muslim council, because they don't know their religion. These positions will be held by people who actually believe in Islam, which is incompatible with West, and so they will shape the narrative within their council, through their council, and other people, other moderate Muslim people who are even going to the mosque every now and then will have to vote for them as well, because they have no knowledge to, you know, go against them.
Yeah. I mean, so by definition, I mean, again, it's like you think leaders, you know, the Catholic Church or Church of England, they're going to be more sort of, you know, hardline in their religious views than the average person who perhaps pops to, you know, Mass on Christmas Eve in a church of once a year. In terms of whether or not these people, these men are, and it's always men, interestingly, whether they are a threat to Britain in terms of their views? I mean, look, I believe in freedom of speech if that's what they believe. I'd rather we know that that's what they believe. But But in terms of them playing that role at the Muslim Council for Britain, an organisation which has had an awful lot of influence on government policy over many years, and we used to receive, I believe it used to receive quite a lot of government money, I believe, at one point. Is that something we should be worried about?
I think so. That's something that we should have been worried about for a very, very, very long time. It's not that these two men are a threat. I think so is the ideology itself that is a threat, right? So these two men would be replaced by some other two men or some other four men or it will keep on going, right? So as long as we do not recognize that Islamic ideology itself is incompatible and poses itself as a threat, and then we can't get anywhere, because as soon as, like, when the numbers are lower and they are more moderates, then it's not a threat. The more the numbers start growing, the more confident they become. And then we have this woke idea that we have introduced that, oh, cling back to your heritage, to your own roots and your identity. So what are we expecting? Because when a moderate person goes back and reforms themselves as a proper Muslim, they will become a threat to Islam individually, and then collectively they will. It's not as if I'm saying that it's something radical or anything. This is just going to happen. It's not just Islam. So if a load of communists were given such things, or Nazis were given like free reign to do it, they will collectively collect together and they will become a threat. So, but it's for us to recognize that this ideology is a problem. We keep on thinking that Islam is not a problem because we base it on our moderate Muslim friends. Oh, but Ahmed down the pub, like, he has a drink with me, he's not a problem. But you know what? Ahmed doesn't know his own religion himself. So he's not supposed to be doing things that he is doing. So because these people don't actually reject the ideology itself, leave the ideology themselves, they keep it alive.
Right.
And out of them comes the idea that, okay, let's say if I am a moderate Muslim, there's no guarantee that my children will be moderate Muslim, right?
And we have actually seen, haven't we, in terms of terrorism, it's often actually second generation where children perhaps feel they're being pulled in two different directions and feel they don't belong. Can I ask you about, I mean, this demand we've had from a Labour Muslim MP for a blasphemy law, obviously for all religions, but let's face it, we already have a de facto blasphemy law when it comes to Islam. In a way, we can criticise any other religion and not worry about our family being murdered. And I'm sorry, it's as simple as that. The only reason there's some things I don't say is because I'd quite like to stay alive and I'd like my family to stay alive. And I know people who have said things which I consider to be perfectly reasonable, have faced death threats, and some people have actually been murdered, we know, in this country and others. But Sir Keir Starmer is being urged to shelve plans for an official state government definition of Islamophobia, particularly related to the grooming and the rape gang scandal, basically saying that if we have a very strict definition that Labour Party has signed up to, basically it means you can't, obviously, someone who's hating Muslim people as a whole, or hating an individual Muslim person because of their religion, clearly that is not acceptable. But someone criticising the teachings of Islam or criticising organised religion of Islam, that should clearly be allowed in a free democratic country. What do you make of that definition of Islamophobia?
Well, actually, I think so. Like, obviously, Islamophobia was created for a very particular reason, to silence even people like me, because I am under more threat than anyone else having the religion, criticizing the religion.
Well, I mean, the punishment for that is death, is it not?
Yeah, it is. Yes, it's most definitely is death. And even for moderate Muslims who are considered as munafiqs, as hypocrites, Allah says in the Quran that he's never going to forgive them. So it's even worse for them as well. Yeah. But this whole term of Islamophobia was also merged with something else. It was merged with communism. So this was a marriage between Islam and communism, right? And what we see is the Marxist elements within Labour, they want to promote this idea of Islamophobia, because under the guise of Islamophobia, they can control a lot of other speeches, a lot of other criticisms against Marxism. So it comes within a package. That's why they both are together.
Very interesting. Momus Najmi, your time's against us. Have to leave it there. But Momus, writer and commentator, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Sam Armstrong, particularly with your Free Speech Union hat on, what did you make of what Momus Najmi had to say?
Well, look, I think that there are real threats to ex-Muslims in this country that are tremendously concerning. And, of course, not just ex-Muslims. Ahmadiyya Muslims, who are one particular sect of the faith, are enormously persecuted. We have seen terrorist attacks on them for expressing their own religious beliefs. And, of course, Islamophobia definitions never seem to protect them.
No.
They never seem to protect those that aren't popular with a certain kind of narrow, extreme views that dominate too much of.
I just don't think any religion, and this, you should be free to say anything of any organisation or belief system, to laugh at it, to mock it, to criticise it, to
And look, arguably, like if they're so right, they'll be proven right in the end.
Yes.
So more fool us.
Apparently, I'm going to hell, but I won't be, because it doesn't exist in my view. So there we are. I'll live with that, or die with it, whichever. So be it.